Hello, Chip Dippers, and today I think we're going to talk about arcade machines, more specifically Star Wars arcade machines. Or even more specifically, those of you who've heard my story about The Empire Strikes Back more than 5 times, my apologies and may the force be with you. For those who haven't, here's what happened when I tried to get The Empire Strikes Back working via Atari 400 when I was around 10 years old. And it also explains the wrong that we're going to try to right for today.
Welcome.
Metro Masterpiece.
Hey!
Hello.
My name's Ladyfractic and I'm on vacation from California.
Wow. Cool. Wow. Cool. Mom, can you buy me an Atari?
You see, the game box didn't say for the Atari VCS video computer system or Atari 2600. It simply says for Atari and Sears video game systems. And so we bought an Atari 400 because that is an Atari video game system. Thanks, Atari. In my first year of owning my very own computer, I spent it playing Asteroids. Now, okay, Asteroids wasn't that bad, really, and with the Atari 400 set up right here in my parents' room at the time, because they had a TV upstairs and I didn't at that age, the truth is that I loved it. It was my first computer. Asteroids was good fun, and I don't regret those times at all. Only, as you could tell, I was always just a bit bitter towards Atari for not being clearer on their packaging and for never releasing Empire for the Atari 400, which is still so strange to me today because they released Star Wars and Return of the Jedi, just not the best one. Again, thanks Atari. Anyway, I was always a bit sad at that moment in Peter Jones when I saw that display stand of Empire Strikes Back boxes emblazoned with that tantalizing Parker logo. Just never had a payoff of me actually being able to play that game that I fell in love with at first sight. Sorry, Ladyfractic. And it's now almost a legendary cornerstone memory of mine, and still so vivid somehow. The display was upstairs at Peter Jones, right here, near the computers and standing on its own in the middle of what was then the aisle. Thinking about it, it actually could have been a clearance tub of some kind, because the game had come out in 1982, and this was all happening in 83. Either way, after falling head over joysticks so much, that sadness, it stayed with me, And I resolved it a little bit a couple of years back when I was able to repair a Tears Telegames. No, you see, I've got tears on my mind. A Sears Telegames version of the Atari 2600, and finally insert that cartridge into the hole that it was meant to go into. As you can see, the game is a lot more fun than one might imagine for a movie tie-in. They did a great job, and the final love of my life and I had a blast playing it. But it still wasn't my Atari 400 loading it up. And I have such a soft spot for my first computer, as many of you watching will be able to appreciate. But then, of course, something kind of magical happened. The 400 Mini was announced, and they incredibly kindly, knowing my backstory with the Atari 400, sent me the prototype, serial number 1, which I'm so grateful to RGL and Atari for. Thanks, Atari. And they also sent me one of the first ones off the production line with serial number 007. The name's Skywalker, James Bond. Wait, no, that doesn't quite work, does it? Anyway, check out my full review video after this video of the 400 Mini. But first up, in my ongoing quest to reward you fine folks in our community and share my good fortune with this YouTube shenanigans, and also make a little important space in our gem-packed Retro Recipes kitchen, you can win either of these actual computers by entering our raffle. Yep, I'm giving them to another retro-loving home to care for, and you could own serial number 1 or 007 if you enter now. And may the force be with you. But back on Hoth, when they announced that the Mini wouldn't just support the Atari 400, but other 8-bit Ataris, I immediately thought, wait, so that means I can play VCS games like Empire Strikes Back finally on my Atari 400 Mini? No, the VCS isn't in the Atari home computer family as a console, and therefore is not supported for this release of the 400 Mini. But in doing that research, I uncovered something bizarre. The Empire Strikes Back for the Atari 400. Wait, you thought it didn't exist, right? Well, so did I, for 40 years. And this is genuinely the first time I've ever seen it. And I'm fairly sure hardly anyone watching this will have heard of it either. It was apparently written by Harold Sigmund, and even more bizarrely, released in 1983, 1 year after the original, and the very year that I picked up that box in Peter Jones. Maybe even the same day, who knows? The Force does bind the galaxy together after all. But other than it was made in Germany, that's all that I or anyone has been able to find out. It's unlikely it was commercially released, which explains why I never saw it, as I doubt Harold there would have secured a Lucasfilm Games license. So if you have even a pixel of info about that version, like whether it was just a fan release or if it did have some sort of commercial presence, I felt your commercial presence, please send me a fax or just reach out through the Force. But enough talk, alright? I just want to play this thing. So let's level up. And firstly, an important question. Will playing this or any game on the Mini be the exact same experience as the real Atari 400? And the obstacle to that question is usually latency. So thanks to PCBWay, let's wheel out the DoubleJoy. This is my little invention that lets me play two computers simultaneously with one joystick. And to create this, PCBWay very kindly sponsored the PCBs used in it for a few iterations until I got the design working perfectly. So thank you PCBWay.com for that and for sponsoring this video as a result, because as we all know, PCB stands for Perfect Cardboard Box, doesn't it?
I've made a thing that lets me stick my joystick in two at the same time.
What? Just kidding. I wish you much joy.
Thank you. And thank you as well.
Well, anyway, let's load up asteroids on both machines, set the TV to picture-in-picture mode, and I'm going to set the camera to record at 240 frames per second. And it's kind of cool, we can now drive both ships at once, though with the procedurally generated asteroids there's no way to navigate both asteroid fields. Empire Strikes Back reference. Anyway, in slow-mo mode we can press fire to simultaneously launch one missile from both ships and see how much slower the 400 Mini is at ejecting its one. So playing it back, and there's the missile on the real Atari. Now let's count the frames until we see it appear on the other one. 1, 2, 3, 4, you count in your heads. 16, okay. Now, PC Mag's review claimed the latency was about 1/4 of a second, or 250 milliseconds, which sounds high and vague. So let's do a little maths, and yeah, it's way better than that. 67 milliseconds. Quick disclaimer though, I'm not factoring in things like RF or HDMI delay, which could be 10 to 30 milliseconds either way, but I think it's still a pretty accurate number because it's what we ultimately perceive with our eyes on screen. And I reached out to Retro Games Limited to see what they thought, and amazingly, they revealed that they also have a custom latency testing device, and it's also made by PCBWay. They've got great taste, those fellas. And even more amazingly, their figure is 67 milliseconds, at least at the low end, so exactly the same as mine, only stretching a bit up to 87 milliseconds with a different TV. 67 milliseconds is faster than you blink, and it's going to be hard for most human gamers to even perceive. Okay, so now we're satisfied it'll seem just like the real thing. But as you know, I'm slightly mad, so I couldn't just copy the game to the 400 Mini USB stick. Instead, I had to spend days modding and hacking the original ESP cartridge to house a USB stick, then copy the game across. And that way, at this point, I am literally inserting the Empire Strikes Back cartridge into my Atari 400. No, I'm just kidding. I actually realized that if you use this style USB stick, it fits perfectly inside the VCS cartridges with a simple push. What are the odds?
3,720 to 1!
Never tell me the odds.
Now, first things first, let's prep the playtest area. And what am I doing here? Well, don't worry, I haven't gone even more mad. Actually, the Badge Man has kindly sent us these replacement decals for the Mini, so I can truly turn it into the correct machine to right this 40-year-old wrong on. I mean, the goal, after all, is to play ESP on an Atari 400. Ah, it's a sign. Well, a sticker. Now, side note, yes, it would be possible, now I've discovered this game, to get some sort of SD card contraption for the real Atari 400. But the thing is, they're nowhere near as ubiquitous as those for C64s or Speckies or Amigas. But most importantly of all, they cost more than the entire 400 mini computer and joystick. And all that aside, I feel like this method is just more fun and of the time. Well, there we go. Now there's only one thing for it. I get to play The Empire Strikes Back on my Atari 400 like I've been waiting to do for 41 years. Before pressing start here, I'm taking some time to really center myself and forget that I'm filming a video and just remember what this is all really about for me personally. And my thoughts turned to my mum taking me to her favorite shop, which is where I found the game, of course, and to Dad, who brought home the Apple IIe for his home office that inspired me so much to want this computer of my own. Just how lucky I was to have that sort of childhood. And once in the right frame of mind, it's time to travel back to my childhood, back to the beginning, by pressing start.